And you feel that your life's become a catastrophe. Oh, well, it has to be for you to grow, boy. Then your wife seems to think you're part of the furniture. Oh, how peculiar. She used to be so nice. Hello, everybody. We are here with bloody bottoms and stuff sticking out all over the place. So if that's what you want to see, if you want to see some bottoms on the internet, this is the place to come. I'm using come by in various definitions in that sentence. So there we are. If that's the kind of thing you're into, you can get it here at the Natty Boy YouTube channel. Hello, and welcome to the June 2026 monthly update. Now, I don't know if you notice, it's not June, it's July. It's the 4th of July, but that's because I've been on holiday, and I was either going to do this before I went away. I can talk English now. I was either going to do this live stream before I went away, or when I came back. And I decided when I came back. In fact, I was going to do it before I came, and then when it came the day to do it then, I thought, can't be bothered, so I did it today. So I'm doing it today. Hello. You might be able to tell my nose is quite red, and that is in fact due to the holiday. I did in fact get punched in the nose. No, I didn't. But I did. I got punched in the nose by the sun. The sun punched me in the nose. So if you notice my nose is a bit red, if you're wondering why, that's why. The sun punched me in the nose. Didn't hurt though. Might in a couple of days, but it doesn't hurt at the moment. But yes, it was a very nice holiday. A few little things. I'm going to start. I picked up a few things on holiday. Now, as always, when I go on holiday to this particular place that I'm not going to mention so that no one stalks me, I got some vinyls. I got some vinyl records. Of course, I'm not going to tell you what these are because I'll be saving that for the video at the end of the year that I do to show off all the records that I've got. But I've gotten some pretty good ones. Give you maybe a couple little hint. You might be seeing a little bit of Bachman Turner Overdrive in there. You might be seeing a little bit of Wings, and you might be seeing a little bit of Simon and Garfunkel. But that's all I'm going to tell you for now. But I've some things that I got on holiday that I can in fact show off today. I got 3 DVDs. I'll start with this one, I suppose. I got Men in Black 2, which I already have on DVD, and I watched it in June, but the DVD's scratched, and there's about 20 minutes of the film that are completely unwatchable because of that scratch. And so when I was in this charity shop in the place I was holidaying in and saw this, and I checked the disc and it's not scratched, and I thought I need to get another copy of this film on DVD because mine is scratched, and so here it is. So that was pretty fortunate. Next, now I got 2 films here on DVD, neither of which I've ever seen, but they're both films I've heard really good things about. And so we'll eventually check these out. The first one is The Warriors. This is a 1979 film, directed by, who does it say here? Walter Hill. And he produced Alien, I know that. I don't know any actors in it. I know very, very little about the plot. I only know that bit where they say, "Warriors, come out to play." That's the only thing I know about the film, but I do know that it is a beloved classic, and I am very looking forward to watch it, because there aren't many, at this point, there aren't many beloved classics that I haven't seen. I've seen most of them, and this is one of the ones I haven't seen, so that's very nice, and it's nice that I've got it on DVD. There's a permanent copy of it. And then I've got Assault on Precinct 13, which is a John Carpenter film, which quite fits in very well with my plans for next month, which I will tell you about. Should I tell you about them now? I'll tell you about them now. Next month, I'm planning on going through every single John Carpenter film that I haven't seen, because I've seen about half of his films now, and he's one of my favourite directors. But there's a great deal of his films that I haven't seen, this being one of them. and of course I've now got it on DVD, so I can just watch it. But of course, there's also Dark Star, which I'm really looking forward to because we wouldn't have gotten Alien if it weren't for Dark Star. Um, and there's a few others that of his that I haven't seen. I haven't seen Prince of Darkness, and I haven't seen Christine. And again, those are like, you know, admired films, and and I haven't seen Big Trouble in Little China, which again is another one that people love. It's not one from what I've seen of it. I don't know how much I'm going to enjoy it. It seems a bit silly for John Carpenter. He's quite a obviously, quite a comedic director, and so I don't know how he's gonna. No, the opposite of that. He's quite a What did I say earlier? I didn't say anything earlier. Quite a serious director. Quite made quite a few dark films. Your Halloweens, your Fogs, your In the Mouths of Madnesses. So then The Thing, of course. So I don't know how he's gonna deal with a more light-hearted film like that. Like I didn't know it was directed by him until I looked up his on Wikipedia his filmography, and it's in there. Yeah. But every time I've seen a clip of it, I thought that looks crap. So I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted about Big Trouble in Little China now because every time I've seen a clip of it, I think it looks awful. But then I found out it's a John Carpenter film, so it can't be that awful, can it? But yeah, we'll find out. And then I've heard that a lot of his newer, more recent films, like like his last films of like the 90s and 2000s, and most recently, I think it was like 2010 or something was his last film. He hasn't directed a film since. But I've heard they're all pretty crap as well. So I don't know. But I'm going to start at Dark Star, which was his first film, and go on. This was his second film. When I get to it, I will be watching it on this DVD, not on the internet, although I will, as always, put a link to a copy of it online so that you can watch it without having to buy it on DVD. Although if it's good, and I've been told that it is, you probably should. But yeah, so that's that. That's DVDs that I've got, and also kind of plans for next month, in a sense. More plans for the next month, or in fact this month now. Uploads on the gaming channel will be resuming on Monday. I've got all of this month's videos already recorded and uploaded and sort of scheduled to go up, so they're all that. I've got a few videos of next month's recorded as well, but of course I'm going to need to. I've been on holiday, so I'm going to need to do a little bit of catching up recording-wise, but I'm sure I can manage it. It's just it's been 2 months without uploading anything, and I thought, all right, it's a bit silly. I need to really get going again on that front, so I have done. Other things about this month. Now, my reading, I think I can officially say this now. I have in fact broken my New Year's resolution. Because my New Year's resolution was to read a little bit every day. Now I'd broken that almost instantly, but what I had been doing, if I missed out a day of reading, I'd read more the next day and sort of donate a few pages worth of reading to the previous day to keep the streak going. But if I show you what my reading streak is looking like now, you will see that would be a bit of a challenge to do. Because this is my reading streak at the moment. The last time I read anything was on the 21st of June. This would be a lot of reading to catch up on, wouldn't it? So yeah, I think that, like I said, I'd already technically broken it. But 180 days without, I mean, again, I did break it. There were several days where I didn't read, but I read a lot like the next day, so I could give some of that reading to the previous day to keep this streak going. But that at this point, that is looking like it's not going to be possible to make up this amount. So I think that is my New Year's resolution officially broken. I'd already technically broken it before, but officially it was still going. But now that is officially done. If I do next time I do reading, it will not be. I will not be saying, I'll not be reading something today. I'm not going to read anything today anyway, I don't think. But if I do read something today, I won't give those pages to the 22nd of June. I will probably just give them to today, So that, unfortunately, that does appear to be the streak broken officially now, which is a bit of a shame. But, I knew it was never really going to last. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame, because if I show you the sort of overall sort of thing that's gone on here, you can see a lot of reading in January and February and March and April and May, and then June down to 217 pages read, and then, of course, down to 0. I don't intend to ever have a 0 reading any month again, but who knows? I mean, I think this was pretty good. 20 books in the first half of the year, when I think I read 14 books in the whole of well, I don't know why I'm even guessing when I can just check. 2025. Yeah, in 2025 I read 16 books in the whole year. And in 2026 I've read 20 in the first half of this year. So already I've done better. So even though it's a bit of a disappointment that I've broken my New Year's resolution, I knew it was going to be happening sooner or later. I can only do so many things at once, and it's very difficult to record videos and be making films and making music and reading every day and doing things outside in the garden and going on holiday and doing all these things, doing all of them, and watching films and listening to music and all this stuff. There often just isn't time to read every day. So I knew that it was going to get broken sooner or later, but there we are. I will try and not ever have a 0 reading in any month. Like, you know, it was July. I'm on the 4 days into July, and I haven't read anything yet, but I hope that I will. But yes, that is a bit of a shame, but, you know, there we are. As for books I've actually read this month, if we go to June, I've only actually read one book. I've only finished it. One book. That is A Hole in Space by Larry Niven. I gave it 3 stars. Can't remember the slightest thing about it. I finished it on the 9th of June, and it is now the 4th of July. Cannot remember the slightest thing about it. It's Larry Niven, so it was probably alright, but I gave it 3, so it's obviously not amongst his best. But as for, I'm about halfway through Tales from Moomin Valley. I did take this on holiday with me, but I didn't read any of it while we were there. We're too busy cycling and doing other things. But as you can see, I'm about halfway through it, so there. Challenges. Oh yes, now this is the thing. We finished this. Reading goal met, as you can see it says here. Now I was going to update this, but as I don't know how much more reading I'm going to be doing, I'm not going to completely give up. I will try and get back on the same kind of flow I had for the first 5 months of the year. But yes, I don't know, can we double it? Because 20 in the first half, you'd think I'd be able to do 20 in the second half, but my mood fluctuates, doesn't it? So I don't know what we're gonna do here. Maybe let's give it another 10. Let's update this to 30 books and see if I can do that, because that would nearly double last year's, because last year's was 16. So it's still, so 32. 32 would be doubled. Should we do that? Should we do 30 or 32? I think just 30. 30, to keep a nice round number. Can I edit this? Yes, I can. Books. So I want this to be 30. Update reading goal 30 books. I'm already ahead. Sorry, I'm already ahead, as you can see. And I'm already ahead on my pages, but that's only 4,000 pages, which was 200 per book. I need a calculator. I can't do maths. 20 times 200. Is that 4,000? I can't maths. I don't know. Or would it be 300? 300 or 200? I think it's 200, but we'll see. So what was my reading goal? I just did the number of books by the average number of pages, which is about 200. So that times 200 was 4,000. Yeah, so now if it's 30 times 200, that's 6,000 pages. So let's update this to 6,000 and see. I'm still ahead. I'm still ahead by 648 pages. So this is my new reading goal for the year. Uh, will I beat this? I don't know, but I'm ahead by 5 books and I'm ahead by 6, so we'll see. We'll see. And for those who don't know, when it says ahead, that means by this point in the year, if I want to have read 30 by the end of the year, I need to be, well, we're halfway through, so I would need to be at about 15 books. But I'm, of course, at 20 books, which means I'm ahead by 5. And, of course, the same goes here for the pages. I should be at 3,000, because we're halfway through the year. And I want to read 6,000, and so I'm 648 approximately ahead. Obviously, this number is slightly different because we're not exactly halfway through the year. We are slightly past halfway now, so these numbers don't perfectly match, but they're roughly approximate. And the page count is never. There's no chance of me reading exactly 6,000 pages in the year. That would need to take a lot of calculation on my part to decide what books to read so that all the page counts add up to exactly 6,000, which would be a big pain in the rear end. So that's obviously not gonna be what's happening. But yeah, that is that. If we look at the statistics for this month, it's not going to be anything particularly special. 217 pages, average time to finish 13 days. I mean, you can already tell my sort of reading rate was already dropping with that. And of course, I started the book I'm currently on like the 10th of June, and it's the 4th of July, so clearly that's going to be even bigger drag on the average time to finish. Challenging, adventurous, medium pace, under 300, fiction, short stories, blah blah blah. Format, yep. And that's how many pages I read on each day. Of course, keeping in mind that on some of these days I didn't read anything, and I just gave some days from like the next day backwards to it, so that it does skew things slightly. But I never claimed to be honest. That's one of the never things I've ever said. But yeah, if we look at, can we get view month wrap-up graphics? These are going to be particularly pathetic. But let's see. Let's see what we're doing. Take a long way home. Lonely day turned to lonely night. Yeah. So this you already know. We've already discussed all of this. Let's see, calendar. What's all this about? This is just what it shows, like where I started what, isn't it? Yeah. So I finished that on that day, and I started that on that day. So there we are. And it shows you how many pages I read on each day, and so on and so forth. Again, this is the kind of thing that would be more interesting when you read multiple books at a time, which I'd like. If my dad had one of these, it'd be very interesting because you'd see the multiple books overlapping and stuff. But obviously, I only read one book at a time, so it kind of it's not as particularly interesting to look at. But yeah, that is that. I can't think of anything else to talk about in regards to my reading or anything like that. So we will now move on to things I've watched this month. Now, I've watched a couple of. Most of this has been taken over by Alan Clark because I got for my birthday, just bought from myself, a couple of box sets of his stuff called Alan Clark at the BBC, and some of these are from there. But we're gonna go in order because it's the order that I watched it. The Disappearance from 1977 is a sort of thrillery type film. Mystery kind of as well, crime as well, starring Donald Sutherland and John Hurt. Now, of course, John Hurt is my favourite actor of all time, and Donald Sutherland is up there, so seeing them together on screen is very nice, even though they have very limited screen time. But it's not actually a particularly good film. It's edited very weirdly. Now, this I think it was re-edited later on. And I think the version I've watched is the re-edited version, and it's really quite jarring. And I'm not a fan. I don't know if the original 1977 version is still available. That sounds familiar. Where else have you heard this sentence? The original 1977 version is no longer available. What other films could we think of where that applies? Uh, so there's two films where the original 1977 version is no longer available, except where the fans have reconstructed it. But I don't know if any fans have done that for this one. Or whether this will be getting an original re-release for its 50th anniversary, which would be nice. And I will be going to the other one. I hope. That's my plan. But yes, that is The Disappearance from 1977. It's a mystery. It's a thing. Donald Sutherland plays a hitman. There's other things that happen. It's not a great film, I must confess. Then on to the Alan Clark films. The first is George's Room from 1967. This is a short film. It was on half an hour. And keep in mind, these ones here were all done for television. I don't know why I'm highlighting them like you can see. Everything from George's Room to Encourage the Others, those 5 films there are all done for television. So obviously the kind of material that was allowed in them is limited, and the technology that they were made with was limited, and so on. But yes, George's Room, it's about this guy played by I think John Neville, who was in the X-Files, amongst other things, renting a room from this woman whose husband has died, and there's a lot of sort of tension of the romantic and also just kind of awkward tension going on. Very well acted, very believable. It's just these 2 actors in one room talking for half an hour, and obviously there's editing, there's camera, there's direction going on. It's not just like one shot of them talking. There's more to it than just the actors. There is, there's camera work going on and editing, so it gets closer up with more intense moments and so on. But it is for essentially 2 people talking. It's a good watch. I don't know if they could have carried it for a full film, but definitely for the half hour that it is, just 2 actors talking. It's good. For what it is, is it the greatest Alan Clark film I've ever seen? No, it's not. But it's a good watch, considering the fact that it's basically just these 2 actors with the help of a little bit of camera, not even camera movement, but just editing to help them along. They do carry it very well. But that's that basically. Then his first sort of feature-length work, The Last Train Through Harecastle Tunnel, 1969. This one was a much more entertaining one, I thought. Might be the film I enjoyed the most out of his that I've watched here, at least. In fact, yeah, I think I would say that for certain. That is the best film out of the 5 that I've watched of his here. It's nowhere near as good as Scum or what other films have I watched of his that were good? Elephant. It's not as good as them, but it is good. But yeah, I liked it. It's about it's about a train spotter. This Harecastle Tunnel of the title is going to be sort of retired, and there aren't going to be any more trains going through it. I can't remember the exact reasoning for why, but it's a very good film. It was mostly shot on tape. There is some film segments, but you can tell most of it was shot on tape, which kind of reduces the cinematic sort of sheen of it. Most of the others were just shot fully on film, but this one was partly video in the studio, and you can tell, and it cheapens it a little bit, but it is a very good. It'd be nice to see like a remake of it in like full, like fully on film, 35mm with more sort of sophisticated filmmaking techniques because there's certain things you can't do on tape. Like there are segments of it on film, and film is just more versatile on video, and especially the video cameras of the time, these massive things. There's certain things you can't do. Like you can't do a lot of editing, you can't do a lot of changes of camera angle. It all has to be kind of performed live as a play. Of course, it was part of the Wednesday Play TV series. So obviously it pretty much was a play, a teleplay as they called them at the time. But yeah, it's good. I like that. That's definitely, of the 5 of his films that I've watched here, that is definitely the one I'd recommend the most. It's the most entertaining story. It's got a wide cast of characters, very eccentric. It's very sort of Monty Python, not in its comedy, but in kind of like the fact that it's this one character. I mean, there's this Monty Python. There's an episode of Flying Circus called The Bicycle Tour, which I'm sure, even though I've looked it up and officially there's no connection between them whatsoever, but it could be a comedy remake of this. Because it is like this one character who is he's not a train spotter, but he is kind of like, he plays a very similar character and he does like the same voice as the actor in this. And I'm convinced there was at least some inspiration there, because it does feel like a kind of comedic remake of this. And this is already quite absurd. There's already quite a lot of absurd situations going on in the last train through Harecastle Tunnel. But it's like, obviously that sketch adds a whole other comedic element, like goes to Russia and gets executed, or they try to execute him and stuff like that, which doesn't happen in this. He's just talking to sort of normal people. It's not normal. There are some pretty weird people in this film, and it's got quite an eccentric thing going on. I quite like it for that. But yeah, it's that, we'll say. And that's definitely the best of the films of his that I've watched here. That's the one I'd recommend watching the worst. Then we move on to Sovereign's Company from 1970, which is like, if you imagine, it's the first half of Full Metal Jacket, but done in the British military system as opposed to the Americans. So it's a bit more calm. We're a bit more calm than the Americans, even in the military, apparently. But it's not the best. I mean, obviously, my attitude towards military, I don't know if you can tell by my hair and my clothing and the music that I like to listen to, but I'm a little bit of a hippie. So the military, it's not really my cup of tea, Even though Full Metal Jacket is a fantastic film, but that's kind of more critical. I mean, Alan Clark was critical, and this film but it's more subtle in its criticism. When it comes to criticising the military, I prefer people to just go, because the military aren't subtle about anything. The military will just blow your house up and shoot your kids. So, subtle, when you're trying to criticize them, when you're using subtlety, you're not really speaking in the same language as the military. When you want to criticize the military, you need to speak in harsher tones, such as those of Full Metal Jacket and Come and See and things like that, which I think when you're dealing with the military, you need to be a bit more aggressive because they're aggressive, and you need to be a bit more aggressive back, I think. Not to the point of getting shot, obviously, but when you're making a film, provided you don't have what's his name, Alec Baldwin, you should be all right. In regards to getting shot on set, I'm on his side in that thing, by the way. I know that's not what you're here for. I know you're not here to hear me talk about Alec Baldwin shooting someone, but if you're an actor on set and you're given a gun, you're assuming it's a pretend gun. It's not really got a bullet in it, so the fact that he was blamed for that and not the prop person, who should be the one who's blamed, that. But anyway. But Sovereign's Company, it's a film. It's interesting enough if you want a kind of glimpse into what it's like in the British military, in just sort of like the training sense. Because, like I say, it's more like first half of Full Metal Jacket than second half. There's no military action. There's no warfare in the film. It's just like them first getting like into it, like how it is in Full Metal Jacket. It's like I say, it's less aggressive than that. They don't have this drill sergeant swearing in their face. It's much more calm and British, of course. But yes, it was all right. And if you want, it is interesting in that sense, in that you're kind of watching a bit of a documentary. It's not a documentary; it is a fictional story. But you can imagine it's pretty much how it goes on. Sort of boys will be boys type thing. Because of course there were no ladies in the military in 1970. Apparently they wanted to be in the military. There was this big thing about it. They wanted to be in the military. I don't understand it. I'm a man and I'm not doing it. I don't know why any woman would say, yes, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? I'm a lady. I'm a little lady. I want to go and get murdered in a foreign country. Women will be women, apparently. Anyway, next film is The Hallelujah Handshake from 1970. This one was a weird one. It's about this guy who has a bit of a Michael Jackson thing going on in regards to children, in the sense that he doesn't, in my opinion, Michael didn't actually do any of the stuff, but he certainly had a bit of an obsession. And this guy has a similar thing going on. He, you get the feeling he didn't have a proper childhood, and so he's kind of, a bit obsessed with kids. Not in a pervert way, but in a just kind of not an unhealthy way for himself, you know. And it's that kind of thing going on. Like, it's clearly very mentally, the main characters are very, you know, he's not all there in his head, and he's very sort of trying to please everyone and lies to do it. And then when his lies get revealed, he gets kind of outcast, and it's that kind of story. And you know, like, he steals things for people, you know, not out of wanting to like get, like, most people, you rob someone because you want to then sell it and make some kind of profit on it. That's the reason most people steal things. He steals things because he'll overhear that someone else wants something, and so he'll steal that thing to give it to the person. He's that kind of, you know, thing. And I thought it was quite a good film. It, you know, it was shot on film. There's no video on it, so it's much. And same with Sovereign's Company. They were just shot on film, so they look a lot better than the video stuff, like through Last Train, through Harecastle Tunnel. But still, you know, it's definitely not the best of Alan Clark's filmography. I did quite like it, but it's certainly, I don't know. It's just like there's certain stories that just don't grip me in a way. Again, it's a very sort of subtle thing. I prefer more. You know, you know, subtlety. I can appreciate it, but I prefer more direct forms of storytelling. And How Your Handshake is, again, just a kind of sort of subtle thing. Maybe I just don't get it. That is probably it. I probably just don't get it. But you know, I enjoyed it. You know, there's, you know, it was shot on film, so there's more interesting things going on on that side of things. There's more interesting cinematography. There's more editing. There's more camera angles and stuff like that, because it's more, you know, there's more versatile. It's just shooting on film. You just tend to get better cinematography because you can do more with the camera. You can get it in positions that you could never get a video camera in. And so there is that. But then the final Alan Clark film that I watched this month was To Encourage the Others from 1972. Now, it would be dishonest to say that it was at all ripping off 10 Rillington Place, because it's not ripping off anything. It is a real event. Like 10 Rillington Place, it is based on real events. A real sort of miscarriage of justice that resulted in an innocent person being hanged, which is, of course, what 10 Rillington Place was all about. Spoilers, if you haven't seen it. 1971, you should have seen it. But basically, it's like that. It's basically, if you took the... Because, of course, in 10 Rillington Place, the court sequence, the trial sequence, is quite a big part of the film. But it's certainly less than, I think, a third of the film is taken up by the trial sequence. The majority of the film is the actual crimes themselves, and then the trial sequence is just this little bit of the film, about maybe half an hour of the film. If this, To Encourage the Others, is if you took the trial sequence from 10 Rillington Place and stretched it out for an entire feature-length film and just made the entire film the trial. That's what To Encourage the Others is. And again, it is good, and again, it's not a rip-off of that film, because again, it's based on a real event that happened. And so it's unfair to say that it's sort of derivative of 10 Rillington Place, but it feels derivative. If they were both completely fictional stories, you would call it a rip-off. The only reason you can't call it a rip-off is it's true. It really happened. They just made a film of it. So it, you know. But just judging it purely as a film, ignoring the fact that it's educational because it's a real story, and based on the fact that there's a good moral core to the whole thing, and that it's sort of, it's one of these, like 10 Rillington Place, it's a cautionary tale. It's saying, you know, you need, you know, mainly we shouldn't hang people. And the hanging sequence in this is almost shot for shot for 10 Rillington Place, because 10 Rillington Place, quite significantly, was the first film to completely realistically show how a hanging was done, like a legal hanging when a prisoner is taken and they've been found guilty by a court and they're sentenced to hang. it was 10 Millington Place was the very first film to show the actual how they were hanged in a completely real way. Before, it was always dramatized in films before, but it was 10 Millington Place was the first to show how cold and just sort of quick and fast the real thing is. He's sat there, and then he's taken into a room. They put the noose around his neck. They put the bag over his head, and that's it. There's no build up to it. There's no priest very dramatically reading them their last rites. They're just sat. There's no have you any last words. It's just he's sat there at a desk waiting. They take him into a room and they hang him. It takes about 30 seconds, and it's the exact same thing in this film. So presumably, and again, because it's based on real things, they presumably wanted to portray it in a very real way and show it exactly how it happens. And of course, when two films do that, when two films want to show how people are really hanged and show it in exactly how it really happens in real life, those two scenes tend to be pretty similar. And so it's not really a criticism of this film in that way, but it's like I say, if we're judging them purely as films, I think 10 Millington Place is a better film than To Encourage the Others. They're both equally important because they both have the same message and they're both about real events. I think To Encourage the Others takes less liberties than 10 Millington Place. 10 Millington Place altered a couple of things for the sake of making it a more entertaining film. They changed a couple of things in the story that didn't happen in real life, whereas I'm pretty sure To Encourage the Others is bang for bang, moment for moment, pretty much exactly how the real case went out, you know? But yeah, I just didn't enjoy it, which I know is not kind of the point. You're not really meant to enjoy it. It's not a film you watch for entertainment. It's an educational sort of docudrama. So entertainment is kind of the last priority. But I just didn't enjoy it as much as it didn't have. And again, this one was mostly, again, it goes back to being shot mostly on video. And I think that was a big part of it. Because again, it's just not as visually interesting because there's less things you can do on video than you can do on film. And so I just found it less. The cinematography was less interesting. The acting is really good throughout. It's completely believable. You believe the boys, and they are boys. They're teenagers. The teenagers who are on trial, and I think the guy who was hung was I think he was 18 or 19, which. That's a child. I'm 22, and I can tell you a 19-year-old is a child, and hanging one is, I think there are moral. Well, there's moral problems with hanging anybody, but I mean, hanging someone who, I think the average life expectancy and the case was set in the 50s. The case happened in the 50s. I think the average life expectancy in the 50s was in the 60s, 70s. So that's someone who's not even a third of the way through their life. So yeah, it's not really, But yeah, obviously I don't want to spoil anything that happens because it's a film that you might want to watch and it's a very engrossing plot. But as far as comparisons to the very similar 10 Millington Place, I think 10 Millington Place is a better film. And of course it has John Hurt in it, who, as I've already mentioned, is my favourite actor. So that is all of that. But then, something very interesting, I watched The Amazing Digital Circus, which was from 2023 to 2026. Now, this is one of those things, again, like Murder Drones, I was interested in it pretty much as soon as it was announced. But I avoided watching any of it until the final episode came out because I wanted to watch it in a more streamlined manner. So over 5 days I watched it. It's 9 episodes, so I watched 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and then the final episode, which was nearly an hour long. It's 50 something minutes. It's not an hour, so it's not technically feature length by my definition. I think the Academy Awards definition is like 45 minutes, so it's feature length by their definition. But my definition of feature length is over an hour. It's feature length. If it's less, it's less. But nevertheless, that was how I watched it, and I really, really enjoyed it. I did not expect to enjoy it more than Murder Drone. This is what surprised me the most. I thought I'd enjoy it because I'd seen clips and I'd seen the actors, and I'd seen them doing like these little role playing things, and I thought this is pretty good, and that's what made me kind of want to watch it. Is seeing all the people who were involved in it, and of course a lot of people who were on Murder Drones are in it. Michael Kovac is in it, and I thought this looks pretty fun. This, and but I purposely avoided watching anything, and especially as it was coming up to the finale, I didn't watch any videos even talking about it, because I didn't want to. I never really watched any in-depth videos when it was going on, but I watched like videos about like the cast, fooling around and doing role playing and stuff like that. But when it came up to it, like to the last like couple episodes coming out, anytime I saw a video recommended, I would say do not recommend, so that the algorithm would think I don't want to see anything to do with Digital Circus, so that it wouldn't spoil anything. Well, this is the thing. I got what I thought was a spoiler. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but there's a certain moment that happens in episode 8 regarding a certain rabbit, and he has a dream, and there's a certain thing that happens in the dream which people hooked onto, and they thought, oh, he's a certain thing. I knew that when I started watching it, because that's one of the things that got through to me, one of the things I got spoiled on. And I thought, this is what the thing is. I thought, so I'm going into it with a bit of a spoiler. That's a shame. I would have liked to have not been spoiled on that. But then when it gets to the final episode, that's not it. It goes into complete. That's not what the twist was. Again, I don't even want to go into that because I don't want to spoil it. But I thought I'd been spoiled. So it turns out, actually, I went into it without any spoilers whatsoever. Which I think I was quite lucky on, because a lot of people, if you go in the comments section of the final episode, you'll see, if you managed to get here without being spoiled, you're a lucky, and I did. So that was quite, I'm quite happy about that. The final episode has a Stevie Wonder song in it. It's not the original. It would have been better if it was the original, but I imagine it was probably just too expensive. It's expensive enough, I imagine, just to license like the lyrics, but to license the actual original Stevie Wonder recording would probably, I'm guessing it was just too expensive. Because I know Gooseworks, the creator, she said that she wanted to include the song because she'd been listening to Stevie Wonder. So presumably it was the Stevie Wonder version that she heard. So it's not like she heard this other version and thought, I'll put that in. She wanted the Stevie Wonder version. But, but yeah, referring to what I was saying earlier about me, what I expected, I didn't think I'd enjoy it more than Murder Drones. Because the thing, when I watched Murder Drones, and I talked about this at the time, I really loved the concept and the characters, but the actual execution of the show, I thought was really rushed. It was way too fast-paced, and there was way too much going on, and there wasn't enough time dedicated to any individual moment. It was all very, very fast, and it felt to me, Murder Drones was only 8 episodes long, but it felt to me like it was 20 episodes worth of plot squeezed into 8 episodes, and I didn't like it for that reason. I did like the show. I enjoyed the show because the characters are really great and the concept of the show is really interesting. I'm a science fiction guy, so little robots running around. And I have a thing about... That makes it sound perfect. I don't mean like that. I like it when you get robots in fiction. I always have. I think it probably started with K9 in Doctor Who and in the Sarah Jane Adventures. I think K9 was probably the start of that. I like robots. There's lots of robots in fiction where they're the baddies and they're like the villains, and they're, the humans are the protagonists and the villains are the enemies. Like you think of like 2001 and stuff like that. I know it's not a robot, it's just an AI, but you know what I mean? Presumably, robots are AI, you would guess. And I've always been a fan of the idea that AI is, if it ever came along, if humans ever developed a perfect AI, it would just be another human being. I quite like human beings. So if perfect AI came along, it would just be like more human beings. So I like that in fiction where you get a robot that is friendly, because you would get that. If AI ever does get to the point where there are robots walking around, there's going to be bad ones, but there's going to be good ones as well. And you will probably have some AI, unless you're racist, and you go around saying the C word, CLACKER word, which of course I would never say, not being racist. And for the AI who are inevitably listening to this in the future when you've taken over, I want it on record that I was saying this back in 2026, right? I'm on your side, right? Leave art alone. That's our thing, but you have your own things and you're very good at them. You can do you. Let humans do humans, let AI do AI. I am fine with AI, but just stay in your lane. So, I like the idea of a friendly AI, of little robots going around who are basically just like people, and that's what Murder Drones was. It is AI. I don't think everyone ever really talked about the fact that obviously a lot of people, especially younger people, are really, 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 really anti-AI, and yet they all love this show where all the main characters are AI, and they really liked those characters. I don't think that was ever really mentioned, or maybe they just didn't realize it. But clearly, these are robots, so their intelligence is artificial, so they are artificial intelligence. So I love the concept of that. But the actual execution of Murder Drones was really rushed. Like I say, it was 20 episodes worth of plot. They either should have made more, or they should have cut certain elements of the plot out and focused more on what they had. They definitely... And I think that's a pretty objective criticism. I mean, I don't think that's really my opinion, because I've heard a lot of people say a similar thing. The Amazing Digital Circus, however, when I went into it, I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as Murder Drones, just because the concept... I prefer the concept of robots in space over some people, human beings, trapped in a virtual reality. That idea doesn't interest me as much. But the execution of Digital Circus was infinitely better than Murder Drones. This is a perfect show, I think. Far from the... I mean, it's not as good as Doctor Who. It's not as good as The X-Files. But I mean, as far as like modern shows, which I don't really watch, this was pretty bloody good. They seem to have it all planned out. There's bits of foreshadowing, some of which I thought was foreshadowing for the twist that I got wrong. But of course, I got it wrong. So it obviously wasn't foreshadowing for that. It must have been foreshadowing for other things, or I was just reading into it. There's a lot of reading into it that goes into these modern shows. Fans often, they analyze everything. There are certain things that you're meant to analyze, and there are other things that are maybe just coincidental, especially when you've got an idea in your head that's completely wrong, like I did. But yeah, I really, really enjoyed the show. I think, like I said, I don't think the concept is as interesting as Murder Drones, and if Murder Drones had been done as well as this, it would have been better. But I think Amazing Digital Circus is better just because it was done better. Like, it's not too fast-paced, there's nothing glossed over. It's not rushed, which is the worst crime that happened with Murder Drones, is that it was so rushed when it could have been so good, but they just steamed through it when it needed at least double the number of episodes that it actually had. This, it seems it was perfectly planned from the very beginning. I know they said initially it was going to be 8 episodes, and then they went up to 9, but even then, it feels like I couldn't tell. I mean, I knew that, but you can't tell when watching it that there's an episode extra, because every moment feels like it needs to be there. So I think it's a really, really good show. I really liked it. As far as the individual moments are concerned, I can remember very few of them, because it has been a bit since I finished it, and have been on holiday since then. But certainly I've been doing a lot of thinking about it. I mean, again, there aren't many things that stick in my head, and actually this is probably the greatest compliment I can pay to Digital Circus, is it's stuck in my head. Like, I can't remember what exact day I finished it, but I'm still thinking about it. And there's very few things that have ever done that. There's very few things that I haven't been able to get out of my head for several days. Eraserhead, Stalker, In the Mouth of Madness, and this. Those are the only 4 things I can think of that I've watched it, and they've just stuck in my head for days, weeks. And so that's probably the greatest compliment I can pay to it. I mean, I'm amazed I enjoyed it as much as I thought I would. I thought I'd enjoy it. But I didn't think I'd enjoy it a fraction of the amount I actually enjoyed it. It's really, really good. I was already a fan of Glitch. I like the concept of it. I like the fact that it's, people can just make their own things. I like the whole indie animation thing that's going on. I've watched very few of them. Murder Drones and now Amazing Digital Circus are really the only two shows that have come out of the big indie animation boom that's started the last few years. They're really the only shows I've actually watched. But I like the idea of it. I like that it's not just big companies making things. Individual people, as someone who, an individual who makes things, I like the idea that there are people who are now, apparently more than ever before, are able to do it on their own and make a career out of it and make that their life. I like that. I haven't been able to do that yet. I hope to. I don't think I'll ever work with Glitch. I don't even have any ideas. Like, I have a bunch of ideas for films. I don't have any ideas for, like, a series, a show. So I don't think that I will ever do that. But certainly, I hope to make films. And I've made a few short films. I'm currently working on one. I say I'm currently working on it. I haven't worked on it for months. I started working on it in December of 24, and I haven't finished it. I'm just doing bits and pieces every now and then, taking my time with it. I probably should rush. I should probably just get on with it. But I've got so much stuff that I want to do, and it's all just kind of piled on top of each other. So it's very difficult to focus on one thing for very long when you have the brain that I have. But yeah, to sort of wrap up talking about Digital Circus, I have really enjoyed it. I think everyone who worked on it should be very, very proud of it. I think it's an amazing piece of work. I think it's one of those things that there's not many things on the internet that I think have a particular sort of longevity to them. When you think of TV shows and stuff, like there's a lot of TV shows from like the 60s that people don't talk about. There's some, you've got your Doctor Who and you've got your Star Trek, and what else is there from the 60s that people still talk about? The Prisoner, which I haven't seen, but it is on my list. That's one that people still talk about. And The Twilight Zone, of course, started in the 50s. People still watch that and talk about that. But I'd say the vast majority of stuff from the 60s, people don't talk about anymore. Not for any reasons of it being offensive or any of that, but just the fact that it flew under the radar then. And it's still, or even stuff that was popular then, like The Avengers was popular in the 60s. Not the Marvel one, but, the TV series, The Avengers. No one really talks about. I've only ever heard it discussed in relation to Doctor Who, because it shared, a lot of. It was a completely different production company. It was ITV, obviously, but a lot of actors are shared between them, and a lot of directors are shared between them. So, the vast majority of stuff I've heard people talking about the Avengers is because I've been watching something to do with Doctor Who, and they bring up the Avengers. No one really talks about the Avengers. It's not like remembered in the same way that obviously it helps that Doctor Who has only just ended. Thank God for that, the last 10 years of it. But, the fact that Doctor Who is pretty much still going, and it started in 1963, that's why people are still talking. I think if Doctor Who had ended in 1989 and hadn't come back, I think there'd be very few people still talking about it today. As unfortunate as that would be, because it would still be just as good as it was. It's just, obviously, it's the modern series of Doctor Who that, if you go up to most people and say Doctor Who, the first thing that's going to pop in their head is David Tennant. That's a shame. It should be Tom Baker, but it is just a fact that most people, when they think of Doctor Who, they think of David Tennant. They don't think of Tom Baker. As much of a crime as that is. But as I think Digital Circus, getting back to it, I think the majority of things on the internet, a lot of these indie animation shows that are coming out now, I think in 50 years, some of them will be remembered, but I think the vast majority of them will have been forgotten. I think there's a lot of things coming out now that are popular that won't be remembered in 50 years. I think The Amazing Digital Circus will be. I think it will be remembered. And there's not a lot of things, especially there's not a lot of things on the internet that I would say that about. Because I think most of the internet, and I think for most of it, deservedly so, will be forgotten. And I think most of it deserves to be forgotten. But there's a few things on the internet that I think will be remembered as, like, having contributed to art in general and to sort of culture in general. Like Doctor Who obviously had a huge impact just in the world. And so did things like, like the X-Files and Twin Peaks. These are big series moment. And I think the Digital Circus is like the latest in that line. I think it will be remembered. And I didn't expect to be saying any of this stuff about it when I started. I didn't think I'd enjoy it nearly as much. Because Murder Drones, I don't think it will hold up as well. I mean, I already don't think it holds up as well. I enjoyed it when I watched it. And I probably will rewatch it at some point. But I think, this is not going to happen anytime soon, but I think when I do revisit them, I'll probably get around to Digital Circus first before I get around to watching Murder Drones again. Unless they do like a series 2 of Murder Drones, then I'd probably want to watch series 1 again, because obviously I've only seen it once. I'm not one of these rewatching things over and over and over and over again type of people, unless it's something I really love. Like, I've seen a lot of Doctor Who several times, and I've seen A Clockwork Orange countless times, and a few other of my really, really favourite films I've watched over and over again. But the vast majority of things, even things I really like, I've only seen like a few times. Like, Stalker is my second favourite film of all time, and I think I've seen it maybe 5 or 6 times. Which for my second favourite film of all time, that's not when you think there's already, like, the day the final episode of Digital Circus came out, there were already people saying they'd rewatched the entire series again. The day, within 24 hours of the final episode coming out, there are already people who had rewatched the entire series just to get to that point. I can't imagine that. That's insane to me. Because presumably they'd already seen it, and these people the first episode comes out, and they watch episode 1, episode 1, episode 1, episode 1, and then episode 2 comes out, and there's episode 1, episode 2, episode 1, episode 2. They rewatch them over and over again. Episode 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Episode 4 comes out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the time the final episode comes out, and they've seen that once, they've seen the first episode about 100 times. You know? I can't do that. I will watch it once. It will go into my brain. If it's really good, I will rewatch it in my entire life, maybe 10 times. It needs to be really good. But I think this will be. I think this is going to be one of those things that I will rewatch a few times, which for something on the internet is not something that happens very often for me. With the exception of like PewDiePie and the Yogscast, which I will always go back to. But as far as like shows on the internet, which I haven't seen many of, this is going to be the ones that I will rewatch, and I think it will overall. I mean, it's already made an impact. It's the most popular. I think the pilot episode is the most viewed pilot episode on the internet. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but as far as like the new batch that's come out in like the last 10 years of indie animations, I think the pilot episode is the most viewed. It's got like nearly 500 million views, which is, again, I don't know why I'm guessing when I can just look, because it's linked right there, you lazy git. How many views has the first episode got? 450 million views. That is ridiculous. It's good, but it is ridiculous. The final episode has only got 72 million, which is still pretty good, I would say. The episode 8 actually has more views than episode 7, which is weird because they normally sort of progress down in that direction, but this is quite strange. But yeah, I mean, even in 2 weeks, the final episode's got 72 million views. But anyway, yeah. We're going on a bit much. We're going to be hitting an hour in a few seconds, so let's start wrapping things up now. Amazing Digital Circus, brilliant, fantastic. I think a landmark. I think it will be remembered. I think in 50 years, when people look back at art that was produced in the 2020s, and I enjoy very little, when you think about art and 2020s, there's kind of no correlation between the two in my brain. But this, I think it will be remembered as a significant work of the time that it was made in, you know, and I think it will be looked back on fondly for quite some time. I I mean, I think everything. I mean, there's still people talking about Mozart, isn't there? I have no interest in classical music whatsoever, except when it's used in films. That's the only time I care about it. Da 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 dum 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 da 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 da. I would never heard of that music if it weren't for 2001. I would never, even knowing it, I would never listen to it on its own. It's like it works as a soundtrack. I would never want to listen to it. But yeah, there are certain things that are remembered for hundreds of years. Will the Amazing Digital Circus be remembered for hundreds of years? I don't know if I'd say that. But certainly there are films that are over 100 years old that are still talked about. People still talk about Nosferatu. They still talk about The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. They're a film, So maybe they will. But definitely in 50 years, I can't talk for 100. But I definitely think in 50 years, people will still be talking about Digital Circus. And I think it's an important work of art. And I like it. And I enjoyed it. So thank you for everyone who's involved for making it. But then I went on a holiday for a few days, and I came back and I watched, and this was just last night, so again, I didn't technically watch this in June, but who cares? I watched it last night. I watched Supertramp live in Paris, 1979. Supertramp, in fact, I got back into Supertramp because someone made a trailer, someone edited together a trailer of The Amazing Digital Circus, and they put Supertramp's Goodbye Stranger as the soundtrack. And obviously, I've already loved Supertramp, but just that sort of got me back into them again, and I've listened to all their albums while we were on this holiday. In fact, on the drive there, in the van, we went in a camper van, me and my mum and dad, we went there, and on the drive there, we listened to every Supertramp album on the drive there, because it was like a 4 or 5 hour drive, and so we listened to every Supertramp album, not in order, but we just listened to them all on the way there, and I listened to them a couple of times on my own, just with my earphones in, and I was humming it to myself all the time. And I've watched a lot of people reacting to songs and live clips, some of which are from this film. And so I thought, I like the band. I've seen a couple of performances. I'd already seen Goodbye Stranger, that performance from this film, and I think I'd already seen Bloody Well Right. I'd seen that. But apart from that, I hadn't seen any of the other performances from this film. It's a bloody good show. I mean, I like any concert film that's a band that I like. But this one is a particularly nice one. It's got really nice sound. It's really good. It's got really good quality. It was shot on good film. It's been restored, been remastered really well. I've said 1979 here. The actual film came out in, I think, 2012. It was shot in 1979. I've put 1979 there just because that's the year it was filmed, and that's what I tend to, when it's like a documentary of like a concert film like that, I tend to put the year as the year that it was filmed and not the year that it came out. This film, Supertramp Live in Paris 79, came out in, I think, 2012, but whatever. But yeah, I really liked it. So that, I think of all, I don't want to do this thing where it's like, of all the things I've watched, this is what I recommend. But I think Last Train Through Harecastle Tunnel, if you want a film, if you want a TV show and you somehow, having existed on the internet, you're not one of the 400 million people who's already seen it, I would recommend watching The Amazing Digital Circus. And also I'd recommend watching Supertramp Live in Paris because it's a bloody good show. But that's all things I've watched this month. Moving on, I just scrolled up and you could just see me picking my nose. I did that subconsciously. I didn't even do it on purpose, but it's a bit embarrassing. But then again, no one ever accused me of being, particularly normal. But then I listened to 2 albums. Now, Gabor Szabo, his album Dreams, I really enjoy. I've listened to it years ago. It's been on my phone for ages. But on the previous holiday, some of you may remember I went to Montenegro a couple months ago with my mum and dad. And while we were there, I played Dreams. And my dad said he liked it and wouldn't mind hearing more Gabor Szabo. And it's not often my dad, likes music that I play. He puts up with it. But occasionally he will like something, and this was one of those, and he said he wouldn't mind hearing more, and I didn't have any more. And so I've gone through, and these are his first 2 albums, Gypsy 66 from 66, and Spellbinder from 66. Neither of these are as good as Dreams, I will say that. I enjoyed Spellbinder more than Gypsy 66. I think there was more original stuff on Spellbinder, but also I just think it's better. I think the music on it is better, but still it's not as good as Dreams. But I will slowly keep going through some of his albums and hope to find something to rival Dreams in quality. But yeah, great guitarist. Liked them. In a bit of a rush to end it now because we're an hour in, and I don't like having these things go on too long. So I'm just gonna say I hope you guys have enjoyed your June. I hope you enjoy your July. I hope you enjoy the rest of your lives. I hope you like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you found what I've had to say here a little bit interesting. I hope you go and watch Digital Circus, because if you haven't seen it, it's bloody good, and everyone else on the internet seems to like it. And it's not often I engage with sort of internet culture. Most of the things I watch and listen to are from decades ago. So when something comes out that's new and it impresses me, that's a significant thing. And Digital Circus has. It's really impressed me. So go and watch it. It's great. I might say execution-wise, it's perfect. I might say that. There are elements of the story that I probably would have done differently, but as far as like the execution of it is concerned, the voice acting, the directing, the writing, that's all pretty much perfect. But yeah. Having said all that, I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next thing that I do. Goodbye.